Hi, everybody, and good morning. We are here. It is a Tuesday, January 25th, and I'm here for my Intro Psych PACE class for week number 3, starting yesterday. So I see a bunch of you getting logged in and joining me here. Again, this is for my PACE Intro Psych course, but I hope everyone is doing okay and hanging in there. It's kind of cold this morning, which I like. But I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. It was a mixed weekend. I'm just going to go ahead and say I was sad that Brady lost to the Rams, but thankfully, at least he had a really, really good comeback at the end of the game, and at least it was close, and he didn't lose like 27-3 or something embarrassing like that. And then at least Mahomes won. That Mahomes and the Chiefs and the Bills game was phenomenal. It was such an amazing game. If any of you are football fans and watched it, and then the 49ers won with an upset, and the Bengals, lots and lots of great football games. I got to do 2 escape rooms, which I beat both of on Saturday, and had some cheesecake. It was a fun weekend overall. So I hope all of you had a nice weekend as well, and that you're hanging in there and doing okay as we get into week number 3 of the semester. Next week, we hit like the halfway point of our short class. So we are definitely rolling along at this point. But thank you again for those of you who are here with me this morning. Make sure you get your names in the chat if you haven't already. But good morning. What I want to do today is we will take a look at weeks 1 and 2. So after our 2 weeks have finished and all those materials have been turned in, what you'll see is that typically on Monday, so yesterday, I did grade everything that was due the last 2 weeks. And I sent out kind of a long email last night giving you some general feedback about the first exam and those first 4 discussions. So what I'd like to do today is just give you a little bit more feedback about those discussions and the exam from weeks 1 and 2. And then we'll talk about weeks 3 and 4, which opened up yesterday, and some reminders for this week. I'll give you the Twitch extra credit question for this week, and then I will see if any of you have any questions for me. So that's our plan for today. So let's go ahead and go over to Canvas together and take a look at some of that. So as I said this morning, or yesterday morning, weeks 3 and 4 have opened up for you, and we are technically in week number 3. But let's go back just for a moment and look at weeks 1 and 2, which are now over. So with weeks 1 and 2, you had 4 discussions up to this point. So let's just go through each one of them briefly. And I'd like to highlight a few things that I saw that were fantastic, and then a few things that I saw that maybe could have been a little bit better, just so that you can constantly be learning and growing and hopefully getting full points on these as we go through the semester. So for week 1, we had discussions 1 and 2. And with discussion 1, you were looking at, what do you think of when you think of psychology, subfields, and then nature and nurture in this quote. Overall, what I want to say is on the 4 discussions that were due so far, I saw a lot of really good things. A couple of things that I think could be a little better, which I want to talk about today. But a lot of you did a beautiful job. A lot of A's and 13, 14, 15 points on these. But for each one of them, there were kind of little things that I saw that people maybe struggled on or could have done a little better. So for discussion number 1, the biggest area that I saw people struggle was on this last question or this last bullet. Nurture works on what nature endows, define nature and nurture, and describe what you think the quote means. A few of you forgot to define nature and nurture, or forgot to respond to the quote. I saw a great job for the most part on the first 2 questions here, but this third one is where people consistently kind of struggled. So some of you forgot to define nature and nurture. A few of you forgot to respond to the quote, or you just didn't quite give me enough. Remember that with all of these discussions, this is your chance to show off your knowledge and comprehension. Give me a lot of detail, elaborate. And so for quite a few of you, I wrote, I wanted a little bit more. I wanted you to elaborate a little more. So just make sure that you're always doing that. A few of you also define nature and nurture just a little bit incorrectly. Now, in the scope of this class, nature refers to genetics and biology, what you're born with or come equipped with naturally. A few of you define nature as like the world around us and trees and plants, which is definitely one definition of nature, but not the right one for our course. So that was the area that I saw people struggle a little bit on discussion number 1. Otherwise, overall, nicely done. Discussion number 2 had to do with research methods and looking at if you could conduct research on anything, what would you want to research and why? The biggest thing that I saw here was just not quite giving me enough. A few of you, I said I wanted a little bit more, especially on this second bullet. I wanted you to describe a little bit about how you would go about describing and examining your topic. What type of research methods would you use? How would you set it all up? A few of you just said like, oh, I'd use a survey or I'd use an experiment, but you didn't elaborate and describe that a little bit more. That was the biggest spot that I saw people struggle with this one. The other thing that I noticed a little bit as well, just to point it out here, is some of you were forgetting to respond to a classmate. Now remember, with each one of these, that you're answering my questions, but then you also need to, this last part here, read through a minimum of 5 of your classmates and reply to one of them. And you need to do this on every single discussion. So the questions that I'm asking you are worth up to 13 points and then 2 points for that peer response. So make sure that you're doing this every single discussion. Those 2 points will definitely add up if you forget to do it. So I just want to remind you again here that not only are you replying to my questions, but also replying to a classmate for every single discussion. So again, a lot of really interesting topics. A lot of you talked about wanting to study serial killers was probably the most popular one that I saw. A couple of you asking questions related to COVID, but really kind of all over the board. And I love it. I love it. Great questions, but just make sure that, again, you're always elaborating and going into some detail. For week number 2, we also had 2 more discussions that you had. So discussion 3 had to do with looking at neurons, the 10% myth, how neurons communicate with each other, and so on. A lot of, again, nice job by a lot of you really answering these questions. The biggest area where I saw people struggle was on number 2. How do neurons communicate with each other? And I really, really wanted you to mention electrochemical communication at some point in your response. Some of you talked a little bit about the 3 different types of neurons, the idea of like an action potential, which is fantastic. But I wanted you to mention electrochemical communication, that there is an electrical piece controlled by ions and a chemical piece controlled by neurotransmitters. And so if you didn't mention that at some point, you probably lost a couple of points. Again, make sure that you're always really elaborating and showing off your knowledge. Answer everything as fully as possible and make sure that you're showing off what you know and how you can apply it. The other discussion that we had for last week was discussion number 4, which had to do with smell and memories. And a lot of you seemed like you had a good time gathering some random items to smell around your house. I enjoyed reading your associations that you had with the random things that you smelled, which is fun. A lot of you gathered like things related to like coffee or different foods. Dirt and grass were really popular. A lot of people also used candles, which is funny. I have a candle right here next to me. I should switch this out because it's still Christmas. But closing your eyes and what do you smell and what do you associate with it? And so the biggest thing that I saw here is that some of you didn't go into enough detail about what smell memories are and why they occur. So I was looking for you to talk about the different connections between the olfactory bulb and the amygdala, looking a little bit at conditioning and the different elements that would explain why we have smell memories. That was one area that people could have elaborated a little bit more on. The other one was this one. How could you use this knowledge in your personal life in some way? And some of you said, well, now I know there's a relationship, so I could use it. And I wanted a little bit more. How? How could you use it in some way? So some of you talked about, well, when I'm stressed, maybe I could smell something that I associate as being calming, like lavender or something that's peaceful and relaxing to help me calm down. A few of you talked about getting a certain lotion or cologne or perfume for a partner, so that you could associate that with that person or with a happy memory. So that was the other area that I saw that some of you could have elaborated a little bit more on how you could use that specifically in some way in your life. And again, don't forget to respond to classmates. That was the other big thing that I saw. But for the most part, on the 4 different discussions, I saw a lot of great things. A lot of you got 13, 14, 15 points on them. If you didn't get full points, make sure you look at the feedback that I gave you. With every single discussion, I graded them on a rubric, and I often gave you a little bit of feedback in the comments. I sent this out in the email, an announcement, but if you scroll up, there is a page here called Grades, Timing, Finding Your Feedback, and Using Them as a Learning Opportunity. So if you weren't able to see your grades or you don't know where to go to find them, go to this page right here. And I created a little video. It's only about 2 minutes long, but I created a short video showing you how to find your grades and your feedback, and reminding you to always use your grades as a learning opportunity, right? If you're getting low scores, how could you improve that? If you're not happy with your score on the exam, how could you change that up as you move into this next unit? So if you weren't able to find your scores, here's a little video on how to do that and where your grades are and all of that information. The only other thing that we had in the first 2 weeks that we should mention here is exam number 1. So at this point, you have finished 1/4 of the class. You took 1 exam, 4 discussions. And again, a lot of you are sitting in a very nice spot of having good grades through the first 1/4. But if you're not happy with your grades so far, this is an excellent time to switch things up as we move into this second unit, second 1/4 of the class. Overall on the first exam, and I sent this out by email yesterday, a lot of you finished in about an hour. The average amount of time that people took to take the test was about 59, 60 minutes, which is great. That means most of you had plenty of time. It tells me that you were prepared and ready to go. The average score was an 88, 89%. So a lot of you were like right on the cusp of getting an A, a lot of A's on the first exam. The high score was a 75 out of 75, so 100%. There were a few of you who got 100%, which is amazing, very, very nicely done. The low score was a 23, so definitely a little bit of room for improvement there. But overall, a lot of you had plenty of time. The average was just short of an A, so a lot of you did a beautiful job. Hopefully now you know what to expect. All of the exams are kind of a similar format and style. And so if you did really well on exam number 1, do the same stuff as you go into this next week 3 and 4 unit. Study the same amount, prepare the same way. If you wish you had done a little bit better, this is again a great time for you to switch that up. So maybe start studying a little bit earlier. If you didn't do the study guide last week, do it for this exam. Write all of those terms and concepts out, have it next to you during the exam so that you're organized and ready to go. Again, a lot of you did beautifully, but this is a wonderful chance to kind of reevaluate as we move into weeks 3 and 4, which opened up yesterday morning. So before I move forward to talk about what we have going on now and this week, I'm going to put this in the chat here. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts, anything at all related to the first 2 weeks of our class? Any thoughts, comments, questions? Again, a lot of you did a beautiful job, very, very nicely done. And my biggest suggestion to you moving forward would be that if you're not happy, this is a great opportunity to kind of switch things up and do things a little differently as you go into this second unit. But again, overall, most of you did a fantastic job. But any questions, thoughts, comments, anything before we move forward? I hope you found the exam to be really straightforward. Again, no trick questions. I think if you're reading and following along, it's fairly easy. So a lot of you did a great job in that, and that makes me so happy. If all of you got A's, I would be thrilled. So again, overall, pretty nicely done. Okay. So if you think of anything, put it in the chat. I'm not seeing any questions so far, but if you do think of one, throw it in there, and I would be happy to answer it. As of yesterday morning, weeks 3 and 4 opened up. Let's go back and look at the syllabus. I think this gives you that wonderful like snapshot overview. So I will bring it up every week as a reminder. But we are now in our second unit. So weeks 3 and 4 opened up. Everything from this week and next week is due by Sunday 2/6 at 11:59 p.m. So as of this week, you have access to chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, discussions 5, 6, 7, and 8, and exam number 2. So what I'm going to focus on today is we'll talk a lot about week number 3, since that's the week that we're in. But if you wanted to work ahead, you do have access to week 4. And remember that all of the materials from this week and next week are due by Sunday 2/6 at 11:59 p.m. So our topics for this week, we're looking at the topic of consciousness and learning. And I have to tell you, consciousness, chapter 5, is probably one of my favorite chapters of the semester, looking at the topic of sleep and dreams and hypnosis and drugs. Really, really interesting stuff. So let's go to week 3. For this week, you're going to want to read chapter 5 and 6 in the ebook. So that's probably order of business number 1. Read chapter 5 on consciousness and chapter 6 on learning. Then you have the lectures for chapter 5 and 6. And remember, with these lectures that I created for you, they follow that 5-tab format. So make sure that you read through or listen to every single page. First page is summary. The second page is beyond the book. There's some fun videos here about change blindness, which I think is a really, really interesting clip. There's a little sleep tutorial video, which might be really helpful for you in understanding the 5 stages that we go through with sleep. A little bit about nightmares, sleep disorders, and energy drinks. Lots of movies and things in pop culture about sleep and dreams and drugs and hypnosis. Great example in Step Brothers of sleepwalking. Deuce Bigelow related to narcolepsy. Yes Man has a great scene related to Red Bull and stimulants. The 4th page is always the key terms and review. So these are the terms that you need to know for chapter 5. And again, if you wanted to prepare a little differently, you could always study as we go along. So you could study all of the terms from chapter 5 while you're covering it. And then the last page is always going to be that application. So here's a little bit about how to remember your dreams. I made a little YouTube video a few years back about how to remember your dreams, some great dream interpretation websites, and then a little bit about getting help for substance disorders. You'll also want to watch the lecture video for chapter 5. So in the chapter 5 lecture video, you'll want to take notes. These materials will definitely appear on the exam. So take notes, follow along. It is a Zoom link here. So there are a couple of outside clips in there, which I think are kind of entertaining and interesting. Once you finish chapter 5, you'll want to move on to chapter 6. So read chapter 6 in the ebook. Go through the chapter 6 lecture. I will give you a little bit of a heads up that chapter 6 is probably one of the hardest chapters that we cover all semester. There's a lot of terminology in chapter 6. So I gave you lots of examples, but do your best to understand and follow along. First page is summary. Beyond the book, there's a little video about Pavlov, which might be kind of interesting and helpful. In pop culture, some great examples here. So there's an example from The Office, which we'll look at in the discussion. The Big Bang Theory has a great example of like rewards and punishment. And then America's Funniest Home Videos with some conditioning as well. The key terms and review from chapter 6. So if you wanted to study chapter 6 as we go along, these are the terms to know related to learning. I also made a little video about some of the differences between classical and operant conditioning, which might be helpful for the exam. So I posted that on here for you. And finally, the application page. Now that you have read all this in the book, how could you use this to help you? A little bit about pranks and training pets and using conditioning, which might be a little bit helpful for this week's discussion. So again, make sure that you click through anything in the lecture videos, watch all of the clips that I include, anything that is linked out, go explore it. Watch the Chapter 6 lecture video, which again is a Zoom link. So you'll want to take notes and pay attention and follow along. So just like previously, you have two chapters to cover, two discussions to cover for this week, which is week number 3. Sorry, put me in the wrong spot here. So 2 chapters, 2 discussions related to them. So let's take a look at those together really quickly. Discussion number 5. Discussion number 5 is related to dreams and chapter 5 on consciousness. So like usual, you will watch my brief introduction video. Make sure that you have read all of the materials before you get going. You're also going to want to read through a minimum of 5 of your classmates' responses. Make sure that you reply to one of them. So not only are you answering my questions for those 13 points, but you also want to get those 2 points for your classmates' response by getting a peer response in there as well. So for this discussion, you are thinking a little bit about dreams. And I think dreams are really, really interesting. I love dream interpretation. I don't know if any of you feel that way, but you'll be watching a little video clip about that I have right here, where you're going to want to focus a little bit on how to remember dreams. And some of us remember dreams better than others. So if you struggle with that, remember that I did make a whole video about it in this week's lecture. And then you're going to read this article about dreams. There are lots of different theories as to why we dream. And so I found a cool little article that summarizes 5 of them that you'll want to read through. You can also listen to it if you would rather listen to me reading it to you. Oh, excuse me. Tuesday morning. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select a dream that you had recently and you're going to describe it. Give me some detail, right? Like what was your dream about? And then you're going to explain your dream from a minimum of 2 of the different theories that are covered either in the article or in the textbook. And you're going to be connecting it to those theories. So I want you to make sure that you describe each of the theories you've selected in enough detail to show me that you understand it. Right, so make sure that you're really describing the dream theories. That's the biggest place that people tend to lose points, is by not going into detail. And then you're going to explain, like, from that perspective, from that theory, how could you interpret your dream a little bit? Now, you want to make sure that you choose a dream that you're comfortable sharing. Do not choose a dream about me. If you dream about me for some reason, pick a different dream. Don't share it with me. But hopefully you can come up with a dream. If you have an old dream that you had or a reoccurring dream, that would be totally fine. Worst case, if you can't think of a dream or you don't have one, you could always pick a dream of someone else in your life, a family member or a friend would be totally fine. But come up with a dream sometime in this week or next week. Watch that video if you're having a hard time remembering your dreams. I gave you lots and lots of tips that can be helpful. And then you're going to analyze that dream from 2 different theories. And finally, don't forget this question down here. Why do you personally think that we dream? What do you think dreams mean? What do they mean to you? And it might be a combination of things. As sometimes dreams can be a little random and sometimes they seem like they can be super, super meaningful. I tend to have a lot of dreams about food competitions. Like I go to bed watching Top Chef or like Food Network a lot. And then all of a sudden in my dreams, I'm like competing in Top Chef. And I remember all of a sudden that I don't know how to cook or like I'm winning the competition despite the fact that I don't know how to cook. So make sure that you answer all of the questions, again, reflecting on your dreams for discussion number 5. Discussion number 6 is going to be about learning, right? So about the other chapter that we have for this week. Same thing, make sure you watch my lecture, my little discussion prompt video that I have here. Make sure you answer my questions, read a minimum of 5 of your classmates and answer one of them and reply to one of their posts. For this one, what you're doing is you're watching a little clip from The Office. So if you click on this right here, it will bring up that clip from The Office, a little prank related to classical conditioning. Definitely something that you could do if you wanted to try to do something like this on your own over the weekend or whatever with a sibling or a friend or a partner. So you'll watch the little video clip that I have for you, and then you're going to describe how was Jim able to condition Dwight. right? How did he go through that process? Use the appropriate terminology. You're going to identify the US, UR, CS, and CR in the clip. So you don't have to explain what they are, but you need to identify them. What is the US, UR, CS, and CR? And you won't be able to do this until you've finished the lecture. The unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. And then finally, other than amusing pranks, describe one way that you could use the process of classical conditioning, either on yourself or someone else, in your personal, academic, or social life. Now, I want you to be specific. I will let you know right now that this part right here is where people tend to lose points. They accidentally talk about operant conditioning, or they don't give me enough information. How could you use classical conditioning in some way in your life in like a practical application? Be specific, elaborate, and make sure that your example is classical conditioning. If you're talking about rewards or punishments, you're in the wrong type of learning. So that is really kind of my best little tip and suggestion for you. So make sure that you get going on the materials for this week. Again, read chapter 5 and chapter 6 in the ebook. Watch the lecture videos and take notes. Read through the lectures and watch any clips or highlights or anything that might be in there. Work on discussion 5 and discussion 6. Those things are ready and available for you. If you wanted to work ahead, next week we're looking at chapter 7 and 8, discussion 7 and 8, and exam number 2. But that's what I'll talk about next week in our next live stream. So we'll hold off on all of that until next week. But are there any questions, thoughts, comments, anything from week 3 that I can answer for you? I do have a couple of reminders and the extra credit question to give you, but any questions, thoughts, comments, or anything for me at this point? All of my cats are sitting there staring at me. A little weird. What are they doing? Like, oh, it's a little unsettling. All of my cats are staring at me on my table over there. So strange. I looked over and they're all just like staring. Anyway, maybe they know something I don't. I'll look behind me for what's going on over here. Right. I'm not seeing anything so far. Of course, if you think of any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But just to check in with all of you, let me give you a couple of quick reminders, just so that you have them moving forward. Don't forget to please double check your subscription status. Every single week, I will remind you. There's still several of you who haven't done this. You can do it at any time. If you could go back and find that way to link your accounts together, follow the instructions, I would appreciate it. There's still a couple of you who haven't done the last step, Jacqueline and Shira. Just as a quick reminder, you still have not done that last step of linking, of subscribing to my account for free. You linked your accounts, but you didn't do that. I just see your names in the chat here without the football cake next to them. So if you have a chance to go and do that last step, that would be fantastic. Show us the cat. They all just jumped down, of course. Well, 2 of them are still there. Let's see. We'll see them if I turn it here. Wrong way. Oh, do you see them? There's 2 of them sitting there. 2 of them jumped down, but 2 of them are still just sitting there. Sitting there staring at me. The other 2 jumped down, right? Happy to show you the cats at any time, right? But if you could take a minute, both of you, and go and do that last step, remember that you just click on that purple drop down and then subscribe for free to my channel. The other reminder that I have for you, our next Twitch live stream will be on Tuesday next week. Tuesday 2/1. Next week is February. Can you believe that? Tuesday 2/1 at 9:30 in the morning, just like with this week. So next Tuesday morning at 9:30, and that live stream, we will talk about week number 4. I'll go over exam number 2 and some tips and suggestions. And if you have any questions about the study guide for the exam, that would be a wonderful time to ask me. The other reminder that I have for you is I want to give you the Twitch extra credit question for this week. So let me copy and paste that into here and show you how you can answer that. So one of our topics for this week was on learning. Just to give you another example to help you out, learning can be one of the harder topics. So I'd like to give you one more way to review. So your extra credit question for this week is in the Attack of the Quack video clip, and I'll show you where that is in a moment. Identify the US, UR, CS, and CR. So in the Attack of the Quack video clip, what is the US, UR, CS, and CR? Now I showed this video clip in the lecture video for this week. So if we go back to Canvas, if you're watching the Chapter 6 lecture video, it's in there. But one other place you can find this, if you click on Chapter 6 lecture, it's on the very last page. So if you go to Application, on the last page, here is the Attack of the Quack clip. So if you open this up and watch this, this is a really, really kind of funny little prank that shows you a little experiment done with classical conditioning. So make sure that you watch this. Again, it is in the Chapter 6 lecture on the application page, or you can find it in the lecture video on Chapter 6 that I covered this week. So once you watch it, you can identify the US, UR, CS, and CR. And you'll do that right here on the Twitch Extra Credit number 3 link. And remember, this is totally optional, but it's a way to get those 2 points, which is always nice. And I think it's a nice way to review as well. So if you click on Twitch Extra Credit number 3, and then up here at the top, click on Start Assignment. Down here, you can type your response. Oh, wow, I can't spell. Response right here, response, response in the text box. And then scroll down and hit Submit Assignment. And then you'll get that little confetti burst and hopefully the 2 points of extra credit. If you get this wrong, you have all the way till next Sunday night, February 6th at 11:59 p.m. To answer it. If you do it early and get it wrong, I will let you know, and you'll have plenty of time to try again before that deadline. But if you wanted to get these 2 points, make sure that you answer that extra credit question here for week number 3. What is the US, UR, CS, and CR in the Attack of the Quack clip? And then remember, when we're done today, it takes a couple hours, but I will post a recording of our live stream today. If you wanted to go back and watch it later, it will be posted right here later this afternoon, or hopefully within an hour or two, depending on how long it takes for that to upload. So those are my reminders for you for this week. We're at about like 36 minutes. So again, get going on week number 3, read chapter 5 and 6 in the ebook, watch the lecture videos and take notes, watch and read through the lectures that I put on here for you, discussions 5 and 6, and then you have the optional Twitch extra credit number 3. Week 4 is open, but that's what we will talk about next week. So what I will do is I will hang out for the next like 10 minutes or so if you have any questions. Otherwise, go ahead and get going on the materials for week 3 and 4. See if you can figure out the Twitch subscription, especially like I said, Shira and Jacqueline, see if you can do that last step that I showed you last week of going to my channel, clicking on that purple drop down and subscribing for free. And if you have any questions, I will hang out for a little bit. I'm happy to answer them for you. Otherwise, that is the end of kind of the planned stuff that I had for the week. I hope you all have a fantastic week. We get some hopefully get some great games again this weekend for the last 2 weeks of football. 2 more weeks, and that's it. I will be very sad when football season is over, but that's okay. I will enjoy it anyway for now, and we'll hope that it comes back quickly again in the fall. So I hope you all have a fantastic and wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to minimize my video, but if you do have any questions, I will be here and happy to answer them. All right, thank you all again so much. Have a wonderful week. All right, everyone, it looks like almost all of you have logged out. There's only 2 of you left in here with me. But if you do think of any questions later today, please feel free to reach out. I am here. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next Tuesday morning for our week number 4 live stream.